My father looked me dead in the eyes and said, "It's your duty to pay for her wedding." That's when I stood up and gave them 48 hours to get out of my house. But let me back up a bit so you understand how I got to that moment. My name is Maya Fitzgerald. I'm 28 years old, and I spent most of my life thinking that keeping peace meant keeping family. I was the kid who learned early to stay quiet, handle things myself, and never be a problem. While other kids were asking their parents for rides to school events, I was working at a grocery store trying to save enough for my first community college class. My parents, Richard and Patricia Fitzgerald, he's 53, she's 52, loved telling people they raised an independent daughter. What they never mentioned was that independence wasn't something they nurtured, it was a survival skill I had to develop completely on my own. Then there was Amber Fitzgerald, my younger sister. 3 years younger and floating through life like the world owed her everything good. She got the bigger bedroom, the nicer clothes, the loud praise when she did the bare minimum. When I graduated law school with $45,000 in student debt, they threw me a small dinner. When Amber posted a makeup tutorial that got 200 likes on Instagram, they acted like she'd won an Emmy. Richard Fitzgerald lost his management position at the insurance company 18 months ago. At 53, he said finding a new job was harder than expected. That's when they showed up at my doorstep with suitcases and that unspoken expectation that my success meant their safety net. They said it would be temporary, just until Richard found something new. Temporary somehow became them settling into my small 2-bedroom apartment like they'd signed a lease I never offered. The first week, Patricia rearranged my kitchen without asking. She didn't look up from organizing my cabinets, just said, "You'll thank me later, dear." Efficiency matters. Richard commandeered my home office within hours, claiming he needed space for job searching. I never once saw him actually look for work, and Amber, who was supposed to visit for just a few days, took one look at my bedroom and said, "This has better lighting for my content creation." By week 2, I was sleeping on my own couch while they lived in my space like they owned it. My bills went from a manageable $1,200 a month to a suffocating $2,400. The electric bill doubled because someone kept the thermostat at 75 degrees like we were running a luxury hotel. My grocery bill tripled, food disappeared faster than I could buy it. My car got borrowed without permission so often that I started taking Ubers to work, which cost me another $300 a month. And whenever I gently tried to discuss shared expenses, Patricia would pat my hand and say, "Family takes care of family." Funny how family always seemed to mean me taking care of them. The breaking point started building during my therapy sessions with Dr. Sarah Coleman. I'd started seeing her because the stress was affecting my work at the law firm. I thought I was just overwhelmed with having a full house, but Dr. Coleman helped me see what was really happening. "You've been conditioned to normalize chaos," she told me during one session. "Start paying attention to the details you've been taught to ignore." So I did. And once I started noticing, I couldn't stop. It began with the credit card bill. I opened it one morning and found $3,000 in charges I didn't recognize. Takeout from restaurants I'd never been to, online shopping purchases, even a subscription to some premium streaming service. When I asked about it, Richard just shrugged and said, "We figured you wouldn't mind since you're doing so well financially." They'd used my credit card without asking and acted like I was being dramatic for bringing it up. My emergency fund of $8,000 that I'd saved over 3 years was almost gone. I'd been dipping into it to cover the extra expenses without even realizing how fast it was disappearing. Then came the day Noah, Amber's fiancé, showed up at my door looking uncomfortable. He's a good guy, works in IT, tries to do the right thing even when he's completely out of his depth with my family's drama. "Can I talk to you for a minute?" he asked, shifting nervously on my doorstep. We stepped outside onto the small balcony of my apartment. He cleared his throat and looked everywhere except at me. "Amber's really excited about the wedding. Your parents mentioned you might help with some of the expenses." I stared at him. My family had apparently already decided how to spend money I didn't even have anymore. "Why would they say that?" I asked. He looked genuinely confused, like he was realizing he'd walked into something he didn't understand. "They said you'd want to contribute since you're stable." Stable. That word hit me hard. Not successful after years of hard work and student loans. Not generous after months of supporting 3 adults who contributed absolutely nothing. Just stable. Like I was a reliable ATM they could count on forever. I could see Noah was uncomfortable with the whole situation, but he pressed on. They mentioned maybe $15,000 for the venue and everything. $15,000. More money than I had left in my emergency fund. Money I'd need if anything happened to my job or if I had any kind of real emergency. I'll think about it, I told him, because I didn't know what else to say. After he left, I sat on my couch, the same couch I'd been sleeping on for months, and everything became clear. This wasn't about helping family, this was about being used. The final straw came 3 weeks later. Amber had been posting constantly on Instagram about her dream wedding and how family support means everything. She'd even shared a story about being grateful for my amazing sister with a photo of her engagement ring. What she didn't mention was that I was funding their entire lifestyle while she planned a wedding I couldn't afford. I was scrolling through her posts one evening when I saw it. A whole Instagram story series about wedding venues with the caption, "Can't wait to celebrate at this gorgeous place. So blessed to have family who believe in love." She'd already picked out a venue that cost $12,000 just for the space rental. That's when I realized they weren't asking me to contribute. They were telling me I was paying for it. Dr. Coleman and I talked about it in my next session. I sat in her office feeling completely drained, and for the first time, I said the words out loud. "I think my family is using me." She nodded like she'd been waiting for me to reach that conclusion myself. "What makes you say that? They've been living in my apartment for 18 months. My dad hasn't had a real job interview that I've seen. My mom reorganized my entire life without asking. My sister treats my bedroom like her personal studio. And now they want $15,000 for a wedding like it's money I owe them. How does that make you feel? Angry. And guilty for being angry." I paused. "And broke. I'm actually broke because of them, and they don't even seem to notice." "Maya," Dr. Coleman said gently, "what would happen if you said no to the wedding money?" I thought about it. They'd make me feel like a terrible sister, a terrible daughter. They'd probably guilt me until I gave in anyway. "And what would happen if you asked them to move out?" That question hit me like a truck. I'd never even considered it as an option. "I don't know. I've never tried." "Why not?" Because that's not what good daughters do." Dr. Coleman leaned forward. "Says who?" I couldn't answer that question. I left that session with homework, to think about what I actually wanted my life to look like. The dinner happened the following Sunday. Patricia had insisted on cooking using ingredients I'd bought in my kitchen, at my table. Richard opened a bottle of wine I'd been saving for a special occasion. Amber live-streamed herself getting ready for family dinner like we were starring in some happy family sitcom. I knew something was coming. You know that feeling when the air gets heavy before a storm? That's what the apartment felt like all day. The conversation started normal enough. Work, weather, Amber's latest Instagram drama with some girl from high school. But I could feel the tension building. Patricia kept glancing at Richard. Amber was being unusually nice to me, which was always a red flag. Then Richard cleared his throat, that performative sound he made when he wanted to control the room. "Maya, we need to discuss the wedding." There it was, the moment I'd been dreading but somehow knew was coming. "What about it?" I kept my voice steady. Patricia jumped in before he could answer, her smile too bright. "We've been thinking about how important this moment is for Amber. A wedding is once in a lifetime. It deserves to be done right." Amber cut her food without looking up, but I caught the small smirk she was trying to hide. Richard leaned forward, using his serious voice. "After everything we've done for you, paying for your childhood, supporting your education, it's your duty to help your sister." There was that word again. Duty, like I was some kind of servant who owed them my entire paycheck. "Help how?" I asked, though I already knew the answer. $15,000, Amber said casually, like she was asking me to pass the salt. "That's what we need to make it perfect. $15,000, the rest of my emergency fund plus money I'd have to put on credit cards." "That's a lot of money," I said quietly. Richard's voice got harder. "Family deserves investment. After everything we've sacrificed for you." I looked around the table, at my parents, sitting in my apartment, eating food I'd bought, drinking wine I'd paid for, demanding money I didn't have for a wedding I wasn't even involved in planning. "And if I can't afford it?" I asked. The question hung in the air for a second. Then Richard looked me straight in the eyes with this cold certainty that made my blood freeze. "Then you need to contribute to the family. If you won't, disappear from here forever." The room went dead silent. Patricia's fork clinked against her plate. Amber didn't even pretend to look uncomfortable. She just smiled that same satisfied smile and twirled her engagement ring around her finger. I felt something inside me break. Not in a dramatic way, just a quiet snap like a rubber band that had been stretched too far for too long. Everything became clear. Dr. Coleman's voice echoed in my head. "They're not confused about what they're doing. They're benefiting from it. These people had moved into my home, spent my money, used my credit cards, and now they were demanding $15,000 like I was some kind of ATM, and when I hesitated, they threatened to cut me off completely. I set down my fork. My hands weren't shaking anymore. You have 48 hours to leave my house. The words came out calm and final, like I was stating a simple fact. Richard shot to his feet so fast his chair scraped against the floor. You ungrateful. I held up my hand. He stopped mid-sentence, probably because he'd never heard that tone from me before. Patricia gasped like I'd slapped her across the face. Maya, sweetheart, you don't mean— I do mean it. Amber's smile finally disappeared. Her face went pale. You can't be serious. I am completely serious. For the first time in my entire life, they had no script prepared. They looked at each other, waiting for someone to take control of a conversation they couldn't manipulate. I stood up and pushed my chair back under the table like nothing had happened. 48 hours. After that, I'm changing the locks. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't defend myself or explain or justify anything. I just walked to my bedroom, my actual bedroom that I was finally reclaiming, and closed the door. That night, I didn't sleep much, but not because I was scared. For the first time in 18 months, my apartment felt like it might actually belong to me again. I could hear them whispering urgently in the living room until almost 2 a.m., probably trying to figure out how to handle someone who wasn't backing down for once. I spent the next morning researching tenant rights, just to make sure I was legally protected. As a lawyer, I knew they had no claim to my space, no lease, no rent payments, no legal standing whatsoever, but I wanted to be absolutely certain about the process. At 7 a.m. sharp, I knocked on the door of my office that had become their bedroom. Richard opened it wearing a robe that wasn't his, one I'd bought myself last Christmas. What now? He snapped, like I was bothering him in his own house. Reminder. You have 41 hours left. He scoffed. You're being ridiculous, Maya. This is just drama. No, I said evenly. I've been patient for 18 months. You're experiencing the difference. Behind him, Amber sat up in my bed, the bed I'd been sleeping on the couch to avoid. You're really doing this. Over money. This isn't about money. This is about respect. Patricia appeared from the bathroom, clutching her robe like she was in some kind of bad soap opera. Maya, honey, don't do something you'll regret. I regret letting it go this far. And I walked away. I had work to do. They spent that day in chaos, the kind of whispered, frantic chaos that happens when people realize their free ride is ending. Doors opened and closed. Suitcases appeared. I heard Patricia on the phone with someone crying about how ungrateful Maya has lost her mind. But no one approached me directly until evening. By 6 p.m., their strategy had changed. They gathered in my living room like some kind of intervention panel. Richard sat forward with his hands clasped together. Patricia perched on the edge of the couch with fresh tear tracks down her cheeks. Amber crossed her arms, pouting like she was 15 again instead of 25. Maya, Richard began in his most reasonable voice. We think you need to reconsider this rash decision. No, Patricia tried next, dabbing at her eyes with a tissue. Where will we go? We have no savings, no plan. This is cruel, sweetheart. Cruel. The word almost made me laugh. You moved into my home without asking permission. You took my bedroom. You used my credit cards without telling me. You demanded $15,000 for a wedding like it was money I owed you. When I set one boundary, suddenly I'm cruel. Amber jumped to her feet, finally dropping the sweet act. You're jealous. That's what this is really about. You can't stand that things come easily to me because you've always had to work so hard for everything. I stood up slowly, letting the moment breathe. I'm not jealous, Amber. I'm done, son. She blinked, confused. That wasn't a response she'd prepared for. In her mind, everything was about competition and jealousy. She couldn't understand someone who just wanted peace. Richard tried to regain control. Family sticks together, Maya. You don't kick family out over disagreement. I didn't kick you out, I said calmly. You gave me a choice at dinner, pay for the wedding or disappear forever. You just didn't expect me to choose myself. The room went silent. No one had an answer for that logic. The next 24 hours were tense. They tried everything. Guilt trips, silent treatment, having Patricia cry loudly whenever I walked through a room. Amber posted cryptic Instagram stories about toxic family members and learning who your real supporters are. But I'd made my decision. I even called a locksmith and scheduled them to come Tuesday evening, just in case they were still there when the deadline hit. By 6 p.m. Monday, exactly 48 hours after I'd given them notice, they were still there, still acting like this was all some kind of bluff they could wait out. so I picked up my phone and started dialing 911. Maya's calling the police, Patricia whispered in panic. Richard's face went white. Fine, he hissed before I could finish dialing. We'll go, but don't expect us to forget this. I don't expect anything from you anymore, I said quietly. That's the whole point. The next 3 hours were a blur of suitcases, boxes, and passive-aggressive comments. Patricia muttered about ungrateful daughters while packing dishes she'd bought for my kitchen without asking. Richard stomped through my apartment like he was leaving a kingdom he'd built himself. Amber slammed dresser drawers and made sure to film herself packing for her Instagram story, playing the victim for her followers. I can't believe you're actually doing this, Amber said as she shoved clothes into a garbage bag. I can't believe it took me this long, I replied. At 9:23 p.m., they finally stood at my front door with all their belongings. The pile of stuff was smaller than I'd expected. Most of what filled my apartment was actually mine. Patricia turned to me with glistening eyes, making one last attempt at manipulation. I hope you're happy, Maya. I hope this is worth losing your family. I'm not losing my family, I said honestly. I'm saving myself. Amber didn't look at me. She just walked to Noah's car, which had been waiting at the curb, without saying another word. Richard lingered for a moment, jaw clenched like he was holding back something he wanted to say. Then he stepped into the hallway without looking back. I closed the door behind them, locked it, and leaned against it for a full minute. Then I walked through my apartment, my bedroom, my office, my kitchen, and for the first time in 18 months, I breathed in complete silence. Real silence. Not the tense kind where everyone's angry but pretending everything's fine. Just peace. The first week alone was weird. I kept expecting to hear footsteps in the hallway or Patricia clattering around in the kitchen. I'd wake up and remember I could sleep in my own bed for the first time in months. I could take a shower without someone complaining about hot water. I could open the fridge and actually find the food I'd bought. Small things, but they felt huge. My bills dropped back down to $1,200 a month almost immediately. My car stayed where I parked it. I stopped getting unauthorized charges on my credit card. Within 2 weeks, I realized just how much money I'd been bleeding. The hardest part wasn't guilt, it was the quiet. For 18 months, my apartment had been filled with constant drama, conversations, complaints. Now it was just me and the sound of the heater humming. It took a few days to stop feeling like I was waiting for the next crisis. 2 weeks after they left, Amber called. It was 2 a.m. and I knew before I answered that something had happened. Maya. Her voice was small and shaky. I need help. Those words hit me harder than the ultimatum had, because they were real. Not manipulative or demanding, just scared. What's wrong? I asked. Noah and I broke up. The wedding's off. She took a shaky breath. I don't have anywhere to go. I can't afford anything on my own. Old instincts kicked in immediately. Fix it. Save her, drop everything, and make it okay. But Dr. Coleman's voice was louder in my head. If you rescue her from the consequences of her choices, she'll never learn to stand on her own. I'm sorry that happened, I said carefully. What are you thinking about doing? I was hoping maybe I could stay with you for a few weeks, just until I figure things out. My heart pounded. 6 months ago, I would have said yes without thinking. Now I could see the pattern clearly. Amber, I can't be your safety net every time something goes wrong. A small sob. So you're abandoning me too? No, I said softly. I'm not abandoning you. But I'm also not going to solve this for you. I told her about rental assistance programs, job placement services, friends who might need a roommate, practical steps she could take that didn't involve moving back into my space. She cried for a while. Then the line went quiet. I get it, she said finally. You don't care about me anymore. I do care about you. That's why I'm not rescuing you this time. She hung up without saying goodbye. I didn't call her back. 3 months later, I heard through our cousin that Amber had found a roommate and was working at a marketing company. She was figuring it out, slowly, but actually doing it herself. My parents rented a modest apartment on the north side of town. Richard finally got a job at a hardware store, part-time. But it was work. Patricia started doing remote data entry for a small business. They weren't thriving, but they were paying their own bills for the first time in almost 2 years. As for me, my savings account started growing again. I paid off the $3,000 they'd charged to my credit card. I bought new sheets for my bed and actually used my home office for work instead of storage. I kept seeing Dr. Coleman and we talked a lot about boundaries, not just with family, but with everyone. I realized I'd spent my whole life making myself smaller so other people could be more comfortable. How does it feel now? She asked during one session. Quiet, I said. but good quiet, like I can finally breathe. The strangest part was how normal it felt after a while. I'd expected to feel guilty or sad or angry all the time. Instead, I just felt peaceful, like I'd been carrying something heavy for years and finally put it down. My work improved because I wasn't constantly stressed about money. I started sleeping better. I even began dating someone, a guy I met at a coffee shop who didn't need me to fix his life or pay for his problems. 6 months after that dinner, I got a text from Amber. Just a photo of her in what looked like an office wearing professional clothes with the caption, "First day at the new job." I texted back, "Proud of you." She replied, "Thanks, and I get it now. What you did." We didn't have some big reconciliation. We didn't go back to how things were before, but it was a start. My parents sent me a Christmas card with a photo of their small apartment. They looked older but also more real somehow, like they were actually living their own lives instead of trying to live mine. I sent them a card back. A year later, I'm still in the same apartment, but it feels completely different. It's mine in a way it never was before. My bills are paid. My emergency fund is back up to $10,000. I sleep in my own bed every night and wake up to coffee I make in my own kitchen. Last month, I helped Amber move into her own place, a studio apartment she's paying for herself. She's still figuring things out, but she's doing it without expecting someone else to sacrifice their life so she can avoid discomfort. My parents call occasionally. We talk about normal things, weather, work, what we're watching on TV. We don't talk about money. They don't ask for help they haven't earned. It's not the family I grew up thinking I wanted, but it's healthier than what we had before. Sometimes people ask if I regret giving them that ultimatum. The truth is, I regret waiting so long to do it. Those 18 months taught me the difference between being kind and being used, between helping family and enabling them. Setting boundaries isn't mean, it's necessary, and sometimes the most loving thing you can do for people is stop making their problems disappear. I sleep better now than I have in years, and honestly, that's worth everything.